The stars looked different tonight. Jiho pressed his eye against the telescope again, adjusting the focus with careful fingers. Something was wrong with the readings. The gravitational sensors showed patterns that made no sense. Objects were moving in space where nothing should be moving. He had been working at the mountain observatory for 5 years now. Every night, he watched the sky and recorded what he saw. Tonight was different. The instruments were picking up signals that seemed impossible. Large masses were moving near Earth, but he could not see them. Jiho picked up his radio and called the main office in Seoul. "This is Mountain Station 7. I need to speak with Director Park." The voice on the radio crackled. "Director Park is sleeping. Can this wait until morning?" "I don't think so. The gravitational readings are showing something very big near Earth. Multiple objects, they're huge. Your equipment is probably broken again. Write a report and we'll look at it tomorrow." The radio went quiet. Jiho stared at his instruments. The readings were getting stronger. Whatever was out there was getting closer. Far above Earth, Admiral Kekstar stood on the bridge of his ship. The blue planet hung before him like a jewel. His 4 eyes studied the primitive world below. The humans down there had no idea what was coming. "Report," he commanded his officer. "The planet shows basic technology, Admiral. Radio waves, simple satellites, crude rockets. Their weapons appear to be chemical-based projectiles. No energy shields detected." Kekstar's mouth opened in what his species called a laugh. "Projectiles? Metal bullets? How primitive. This will be easier than conquering the Deltans." The Vorthak Empire had conquered 17 worlds. Each time, they had faced energy weapons, force fields, and advanced defenses. This little blue world looked like it would fall in a day. "Their population?" Kekstar asked. "About 8 billion. They seem to live in large groups called cities. Most of their military appears to be ground-based." "Ground-based," Kekstar repeated. "No orbital defenses worth mentioning. Begin the standard invasion protocol. Show them our power. They will surrender quickly." In a small farming town, Do-hyun was fixing his tractor when the radio began making strange noises. He had fought in wars before joining the army. Now he just wanted to grow crops and live quietly. But the radio sounds reminded him of military communications from his soldier days. He walked into his house and turned on the television. The news showed nothing unusual. Weather reports, politics, sports. But his old instincts were telling him something was wrong. He had learned to trust those feelings during his time as a Special Forces soldier. Do-hyun opened an old wooden box in his closet. Inside were things from his military days. A radio, night vision goggles, and other equipment he had kept, just in case. He turned on the radio and began scanning frequencies. What he heard made his blood cold. Military channels were buzzing with activity. Code words, he remembered. Emergency protocols. Something big was happening, but the public did not know yet. In the city, Nari was working her night shift at the communication center. Her job was to monitor radio traffic for the military. Usually it was quiet work. Tonight was different. Signals were coming from everywhere. Strange patterns in the radio waves, reports from observatories around the world. Her supervisor, Colonel Kim, looked worried. "What do you make of these reports?" "Sir, observatories in 12 countries are reporting the same thing. Gravitational anomalies, large objects in space, but we can't see anything on radar." "Stealth technology?" "Maybe, but this is beyond anything we know about. The objects would have to be enormous." Colonel Kim picked up a red phone. "Get me the president's office. We need to activate the emergency protocols." Nari had never seen the emergency protocols activated before. She began calling military bases around the country. Something told her they would need every soldier they could get. At the Medical Research Center, Yuna was working late in her laboratory. She studied tiny life forms that could survive in impossible places. Bacteria that lived in boiling water. Organisms that ate radiation. Life that thrived where nothing should be able to live. Her computer beeped. A message from her colleague, in America. "Are you seeing the astronomical report? Something big is happening." Yuna opened her email. Messages from scientists around the world, all reporting the same thing. Gravitational disturbances, radio interference, objects in space that should not be there. She thought about the organisms she studied, life that survived in the worst conditions imaginable, life that became stronger when faced with dangers that would kill other creatures. Earth was full of such life. Humans were part of it. Her phone rang. It was her brother, a pilot in the Air Force. "Yuna, listen carefully. Don't go outside tomorrow. Stay in the building, something is coming." "What do you mean?" "I can't say much, but the military is preparing for something big. Stay safe." Above them all, the Vorthak ships moved closer to Earth. Kextar studied reports about human civilization. Their technology seemed so simple. Their weapons were basic, their societies appeared weak and divided. "Admiral," his officer said, "we have intercepted more of their communications. They have many different nations. They fight among themselves frequently." "Excellent. A divided species is easier to conquer. They will not unite against us." The Vorthak had studied human history through their intercepted signals. Wars between nations, competition for resources, political divisions. It looked like a species that could not work together when faced with a real threat. "Begin the revelation protocol. Let them see our ships. Give them time to panic and surrender." Jiho was still at his telescope when the sky changed. First, there was a shimmer in the air. Then shapes began to appear. Massive shapes. Ships bigger than anything humans had ever built. He grabbed his radio. "This is Mountain Station 7. They're here. The ships are here. Massive vessels appearing over the cities." This time people listened. Around the world, the Vorthak fleet revealed itself. Hundreds of ships appeared over major cities. Each ship was kilometers long, casting shadows over the buildings below. The message came in every language on Earth, a voice speaking from the ships above. "Humans of Earth, we are the Vorthak Empire. Your primitive world is now under our control. Surrender your governments and weapons. Resistance is useless. You have one day to comply." But the Vorthak had made their first mistake. They expected fear and quick surrender. Instead, air raid sirens began wailing in every major city. Military bases came alive with activity. Emergency broadcasts told civilians to seek shelter. The humans were not panicking. They were preparing for war. The one-day deadline passed without a single government surrendering. Admiral Kextar stared at his communication screens in confusion. Usually, primitive species begged for mercy within hours of seeing the Vorthak fleet. "Admiral, we're receiving thousands of radio transmissions from the surface. Military channels are active worldwide. They appear to be coordinating some kind of response." Kextar's four eyes narrowed. "Response? With their primitive weapons? Begin the demonstration attacks. Target their military installations. Show them our power." The first Vorthak attack ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like burning stars. Their plasma cannons charged, ready to destroy human defenses with overwhelming force. They were not ready for what happened next. Nari watched her communication screens light up with reports from around the world. "Colonel Kim, the enemy ships are moving into our airspace. Good. Let them come closer." This surprised Nari. Why would they want the alien ships closer? Her answer came seconds later. Fighter jets that had been hidden in underground hangars burst into the sky. Not just a few jets, but hundreds. From every country on Earth, human aircraft rose to meet the invaders. The Vorthak had expected no air resistance. Their intelligence had shown that human aircraft were simple machines that burned fuel and fired metal projectiles. What they had not expected was how many humans had built, and how well they could fight. The first Vorthak ship to enter the atmosphere over Japan was met by a squadron of fighters that seemed to appear from nowhere. The alien pilot laughed at the approaching aircraft. Their energy shields could stop any primitive weapon, but the human pilot did not fire weapons. Instead, his aircraft slammed directly into the Vorthak ship's shield generator. The explosion destroyed both the human fighter and the alien's defensive systems. What kind of species kills itself to damage the enemy? The Vorthak pilot screamed before his ship crashed into the ocean. Around the world, similar scenes played out. Human pilots flew their aircraft directly into alien ships. Some used missiles, others used their planes as weapons. The Vorthak shields were powerful, but they had never been designed to stop creatures that were willing to die to hurt their enemies. Do-hyun was in his fields when the fighting started overhead. He watched alien ships burning as they fell from the sky. His old military training kicked in. He grabbed his radio and began calling people he had served with. "This is Do-hyun. Anyone still on this frequency?" Voices came back from around the country. Old soldiers, retired fighters, men and women who had put away their weapons but never forgotten how to use them. "We need to organize. These aliens will send ground forces soon." Within hours, Do-hyun had connected with resistance groups forming across the countryside. Farmers with hunting rifles, mechanics who could build explosives from farm supplies, people who knew every hill and cave for hundreds of kilometers around. The Vorthak had studied human military bases, but they had not counted on every civilian. Being a potential fighter, Admiral Kekstar was receiving reports that made no sense. His ships were taking damage from primitive aircraft. Worse, the humans were not retreating. Even when faced with superior firepower, they kept attacking. "Admiral, we've lost 12 ships to kamikaze attacks. The humans are flying their aircraft directly into our vessels. That's impossible. No intelligent species wastes resources that way." "Sir, they appear to have many more aircraft than our intelligence suggested. They've been hiding them underground." This was the Vorthak's second surprise. Human military preparations had not been visible from space because they had been hidden below ground. Bunkers full of weapons, aircraft, and supplies had been built over decades. The human governments had been preparing for this day without knowing when it would come. Yuna was in her laboratory when the building shook. Through her window she could see explosions in the sky. Alien ships were fighting human aircraft directly above the city. Her computer was receiving data from research centers around the world. Scientists were sharing everything they had learned about the alien technology in just a few hours of fighting. "The alien energy weapons have a recharge time," she typed to her colleagues. "After firing, there is a 3-second delay." "Confirmed," came a reply from Germany. "Their shields fail when multiple impacts hit the same spot within 2 seconds. Human scientists were studying their enemies even while bombs fell around them. Every weakness discovered was shared instantly with military forces worldwide." Yuna realized that this was something unique about humans. Other species might panic or hide. Humans studied their enemies and looked for ways to fight back. The real shock came when the first Vorthak ground forces landed. Admiral Kekstar had expected quick victory once his soldiers were on the surface. Vorthak warriors were strong, well-armed, and protected by personal energy shields. They had never fought guerrilla warfare. The first landing force set down in a rural area, planning to march on the nearest city. Instead, they found themselves under attack from enemies they could not see. Do-hyun and his group watched the alien soldiers from hidden positions in the forest. The aliens moved in tight formations like parade soldiers. Their energy weapons were powerful, but they fired in straight lines. "Wait for my signal," Do-hyun whispered into his radio. The Vorthak soldiers walked into a valley where humans had spent all day preparing surprises. Buried explosives, hidden shooters, traps made from farming equipment. When Do-hyun gave the signal, the valley exploded into violence. The aliens found themselves under attack from all directions. Their energy weapons were powerful, but they could not hit enemies that appeared, fired, and disappeared again. Worse, the human weapons were doing damage. The Vorthak personal shields were designed to stop energy blasts, not high-speed metal bullets fired from hunting rifles. "Fall back." "Fall back," the Vorthak commander ordered, but there was nowhere to fall back to. More humans appeared behind them. Old soldiers who had fought in wars, police officers, hunters who knew every tree in the forest. The Vorthak had brought advanced weapons to a fight where humans used knowledge of their own land as their greatest weapon. Nari was coordinating communications between resistance groups when the reports started coming in. Human forces were not just surviving the alien attacks, they were winning. "Colonel Kim, we're getting reports of alien retreats from 7 different landing zones. How is that possible?" "Sir, it appears the aliens have never fought an enemy. that uses guerrilla tactics. They don't know how to fight an enemy that won't stand still and fight fairly. Colonel Kim smiled for the first time since the invasion began. Fair fighting is for sports. This is war. Around the world, the pattern repeated. Alien forces would land expecting quick victories. Instead, they found human defenders who fought in ways the Vorthak had never seen. Attacks from underground, tunnels, ambushes from abandoned buildings, explosives hidden in roads. Humans did not fight like any other species in the Vorthak's experience. They did not line up for honorable battle. They hit hard and disappeared. They used their enemies' expectations against them. Admiral Kekstar stared at his reports in growing horror. His advanced fleet was being damaged by primitive aircraft flown by pilots willing to die. His ground forces were being defeated by farmers with hunting rifles. "Sir, perhaps we should consider retreat," his officer suggested. Retreat? From primitives? Impossible. Send more ships, send all the ground forces. But deep in his mind, Kekstar was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. This was not going to be an easy conquest. These humans were something different from any species he had ever encountered. They did not fight to win quickly. They fought like creatures that had learned to survive in a world that was constantly trying to kill them, and they were very good at it. 3 weeks into the invasion, the Vorthak were learning that conquering Earth was not going to be simple. Admiral Kekstar had lost a third of his fleet to human kamikaze attacks and hidden weapons. His ground forces were struggling against enemies that refused to fight like civilized warriors. But the Vorthak were winning through sheer numbers and superior technology. Human cities were under siege. Many governments had fallen. It was during the capture of a research facility that everything changed. Yuna was working in her laboratory when Vorthak soldiers broke down the doors. She had been trying to develop weapons based on the bacteria she studied, organisms that could eat metal or survive in space. "Do not move, human," the Vorthak commander said in broken English. "You will come with us." They dragged her to their ship for questioning. The Vorthak scientist who examined her was curious about human biology. Humans seemed much stronger than they should be for their size. "Your species is strange," the alien scientist told Yuna. "Your muscle density is very high. Your bones are thick. Your immune system is incredibly complex. Why did evolution make you so robust?" "What do you mean?" "Most intelligent species evolve beyond physical strength. They use technology instead of muscle. But humans seem designed for survival in harsh conditions." Yuna thought about this. Earth is a harsh world. We had to be strong to survive. Harsh? The Vorthak scientist showed her images of other worlds. Beautiful planets with gentle weather, abundant food, and no dangerous animals. "These are normal worlds. What makes Earth harsh?" "Everything," Yuna said. "Natural disasters, diseases, predators, weather that can kill you. We had to adapt or die." The Vorthak scientist stared at her. "Your planet is a death world?" Meanwhile, other Vorthak were accessing human computer networks. What they found confused them greatly. Human history was full of wars, disasters, and survival stories. But there were also references that made no sense. "Admiral," his intelligence officer reported, "human historical records contain many inconsistencies." "What kind of inconsistencies?" "They reference events and places that do not appear in our scans of this planet. Wars on worlds with different names. Technologies that we do not see here. And sir, there are references to other human colonies." Kekstar studied the data. Human internet contained discussions about the homeworld and the colonies and the exile. There were technical manuals for spacecraft far more advanced than anything they had seen humans use. "Perhaps these are fiction stories," Kekstar suggested. "Sir, the references are too consistent across all human cultures. And we've found something else. Hidden deep in their networks are communication protocols for faster-than-light messaging." This made no sense. Faster-than-light communication was advanced technology. The Vorthak barely had it themselves. How could a primitive species like humans have developed it? Jiho was still at his observatory, now under Vorthak guard. But they let him continue his work because they thought astronomy was harmless. They were wrong. Using equipment the aliens had dismissed as primitive, Jiho had managed to access the faster-than-light communication network hidden in Earth systems. What he found shocked him. The network was enormous. Signals were coming from hundreds of star systems, all in human languages, all using codes and protocols that somehow felt familiar to him. He began sending a message on the emergency frequency. "This is Earth Station 7. We are under attack by the Vorthak Empire, requesting immediate assistance." The reply came within minutes, but not from any Earth government. "Earth Station 7, this is Terran Fleet Command. We have been monitoring the situation. Relief forces are already en route. Hold position." "Terran Fleet Command? Who is this?" "This is Admiral Park Myung-soo of the Terran Liberation Fleet. We'll be there in 48 hours. Jiho stared at his equipment. A human admiral with a Korean name, commanding a fleet he had never heard of, promising to reach Earth in 2 days, from somewhere in deep space. Do-hyun was leading a raid on a Vorthak supply depot when his radio crackled with a message that changed everything. "All resistance forces, this is Terran Command. Prepare for orbital support in 36 hours. Maintain current operations until fleet arrival." His men looked at him in confusion. "Terran Command? Who is that?" "I don't know," Do-hyun said, "but they sound human." Similar messages were reaching resistance groups worldwide. Human voices speaking various Earth languages but with accents no one could place. They knew Earth military codes. They understood human tactics, but they claimed to represent forces that no Earth government had ever heard of. Nari, still working at her communications center, was the first to make contact with these mysterious humans. "Terran Command, this is Earth Defense Communications. What is your status?" "Earth Defense, this is Fleet Admiral Chang Wei-ming commanding the 1st Terran Liberation Fleet. We are currently 18 hours out from your position. Admiral, what is the Terran Liberation Fleet? We have no record of this organization." There was a pause. Then laughter. "Earth Defense, you've been isolated for 800 years. We're your children, coming home to help." "Our children?" "The exile ended a long time ago, but Earth was kept as a preserve. The rest of us have been out here, spreading across the galaxy. When the Vorthak attacked our homeworld, they declared war on all of humanity." Nari felt her world shift. "Are you saying there are human colonies in space?" "Colonies? Try whole civilizations. Earth has 8 billion people, the rest of us number in the trillions." The truth began to emerge through intercepted communications and captured Vorthak data. Earth was not humanity's only world, or even their most important one. It was a preserve, kept primitive and isolated while the rest of humanity had spread across the galaxy. The original exile had happened thousands of years ago. Other alien species had feared humanity's aggressive nature and rapid adaptation. They had dumped humans on Earth, a harsh death world, hoping the brutal environment would contain them. Instead, it had made them stronger. Some humans had eventually escaped and built an interstellar civilization. But Earth was kept isolated, both as a memorial and as a training ground. The harsh conditions that were meant to weaken humanity had instead created the ultimate warriors. Yuna learned this from her Vorthak captor, who was now very frightened. "Your species was exiled to this world because you were too dangerous," the alien scientist told her. "Earth was chosen because it kills most life forms that try to live here. But we adapted." "Yes. And now we understand why you are so strong. Every human on this planet has been bred by natural selection for thousands of years. Only the toughest survived. Only the smartest lived to reproduce." The Vorthak scientist showed her data about other worlds. Most species evolve on gentle worlds. They become intelligent but physically weak. You evolved on a world that constantly tried to kill you. You became intelligent and physically powerful. Yuna smiled. "And now you're trapped on this world with us." Above Earth, Admiral Kekstar was receiving the worst news of his military career. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting multiple fleets approaching our position." "Large fleets." "Reinforcements?" "No, sir. The ships are of unknown design. They're broadcasting in human languages. Kextar felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. Fear. How many ships? Sir, thousands. And sir? They're not using the same primitive technology we've been fighting. These ships appear to be using advanced drives and weapons systems. Through the communication networks, the message spread to every human on Earth. Help was coming. But not from Earth governments or Earth military forces. Help was coming from humanity's lost children, returning home to defend the world that had made them strong. The Vorthak Empire had not invaded a primitive world. They had attacked the training ground of the galaxy's most dangerous species, and now they were about to meet the graduates. The first ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like ghosts becoming solid. Admiral Kextar watched his sensors with growing terror as more vessels continued to arrive. Hundreds became thousands. Thousands became tens of thousands. Admiral, his officer reported with a shaking voice, "The fleet is enormous." "How enormous?" "Sir, we count over 50,000 vessels, and more keep arriving." Kextar had brought 800 ships to conquer Earth, thinking it was more than enough for a primitive world. The human fleet approaching them was larger than any military force in Vorthak history. "Open communications with the lead ship," Kextar ordered. The face that appeared on his screen was human, but somehow different from the Earth humans he had been fighting. This man's eyes held the coldness of deep space. His skin bore scars from battles on distant worlds. "This is Fleet Admiral Chang Wei-Ming of the 1st Terran Liberation Fleet. You will surrender immediately and face trial for crimes against humanity." "I am Admiral Kextar of the Vorthak Empire. This world belongs to us by right of conquest." Chang's expression did not change. "You attacked our homeworld. That makes this a war of extermination." The communication ended. Kextar stared at the black screen, trying to understand what had just happened. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever threatened to exterminate the Vorthak Empire. On Earth's surface, Do-Hyun was fighting a running battle with Vorthak ground forces when the sky began to change. New lights appeared among the stars. Streams of fire began falling from space, but these were not Vorthak weapons. All Earth resistance forces, this is General Park Sung-ho, commanding the Terran ground forces. "We are beginning orbital bombardment of enemy positions. Take cover." Do-Hyun dove behind a destroyed building as explosions lit up the night. But these explosions were different. They targeted only Vorthak positions with surgical precision. Every alien vehicle, every enemy stronghold, every occupied building was hit while human areas remained untouched. "How are they doing that?" one of his fighters asked. "Advanced targeting systems," came a voice behind them. They turned to see a figure in armor unlike anything they had ever seen. The armor seemed to blend with shadows, making the person nearly invisible. When the helmet came off, it revealed a human face. A young woman with the same general features as Koreans, but with eyes that had seen too much war. "I'm Captain Park Min-ji, 47th Orbital Drop Division. I'm your backup." Do-Hyun stared at her. "Park? Are you your great-great-granddaughter?" "Probably. The family records show our ancestor lived in this region." She smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "The Park family has been fighting wars across the galaxy for 300 years. "The galaxy? Earth is small. There are billions of worlds out there, and humans live on thousands of them. We've been the galaxy's soldiers for hire while you've been stuck on this rock." More figures appeared from the shadows, an entire unit of soldiers wearing armor that made them nearly invisible. They moved like ghosts and carried weapons that made no sound when they fired. "Your Earth military did well," Min-ji told Do-Hyun, "but you've been fighting with training equipment. Want to see real weapons?" She handed him a rifle that weighed almost nothing. When he looked through its scope, he could see enemy positions kilometers away. The weapon's computer showed him exactly where to aim and when to fire. "This is incredible," Do-Hyun said. "This is standard infantry equipment. The Vorthak brought energy weapons to fight an enemy that's been perfecting warfare for 8 centuries. Around the world, similar scenes played out. Earth's resistance fighters were joined by soldiers who looked human, but fought with technology that seemed like magic. They moved faster, hit harder, and never seemed to miss their targets. But the most shocking moment came when Do-hyun met his descendants' commanding officer. The man who approached their position was clearly Korean, but he moved like no human Do-hyun had ever seen. His reflexes were too fast. His awareness of his surroundings was too perfect. Colonel Kim Tae-won, 15th Shock Infantry. You must be the original Park Do-hyun. Original? We've been studying Earth military records. Your tactics during the early resistance became required learning at the War College. Every soldier in the Terran military knows your name. Do-hyun could not believe what he was hearing. War College? Humanity has been at war somewhere in the galaxy for the past 500 years. We're very good at it now. Kim showed Do-hyun a small device. When activated, it projected images in the air. Battles on distant worlds. Human soldiers fighting alien enemies that looked like nightmares. Spaceships larger than cities engaged in combat among the stars. While Earth was isolated, the rest of us have been fighting for survival against dozens of hostile species. The Fourthic Empire is just the latest enemy to underestimate us. How many of you are there? Humans? Hard to say exactly. We've spread across half the galaxy. Probably around 3 trillion, give or take a few billion. Do-hyun felt his mind struggling to accept these numbers. Earth had 8 billion humans. Their descendants had grown to 3 trillion. The exile was broken 800 years ago, Kim continued. But we kept Earth isolated for a reason. This world produces the best soldiers in human space. What do you mean? Look around you. Natural disasters, diseases, predators, resource scarcity, violent weather. Earth is what we call a Class 12 death world. Most species can't even visit here without dying. Kim gestured to the landscape around them. Every human born on Earth has been naturally selected for survival in the worst conditions in the known galaxy. You don't realize it, but you're all super soldiers by galactic standards. In orbit above Earth, the battle was already over before it truly began. The Vorthak fleet, designed to intimidate primitive worlds, found itself facing military technology 8 centuries more advanced than their own. Nari was listening to the battle reports with amazement. The human fleet had not simply defeated the Vorthak forces. They had destroyed them so completely that most alien ships never got a chance to fire their weapons. Earth defense, this is Fleet Admiral Chang. The Vorthak orbital forces have been eliminated. We're beginning ground support operations. Admiral, how did you defeat them so quickly? They brought plasma weapons to fight people who have been perfecting war for 800 years. It wasn't really a contest. Chang's voice carried the weariness of someone who had fought too many battles. The Vorthak made 2 mistakes. First, they attacked Earth. Second, they assumed you were primitives. We are primitives. Our technology is centuries behind yours. Your technology is primitive. You are not. Every human on Earth has been bred by natural selection to survive conditions that would kill most galactic citizens in hours. Through the communication network, Chang explained what the galactic humans had learned over centuries of warfare. Most intelligent species evolve on paradise worlds. Gentle weather, abundant food, no serious predators. They become smart but physically weak. We evolved on a world that constantly tried to kill us. That's why every Earth human can do things that amaze other species. You can survive injuries that would be fatal to most aliens. You can adapt to environments that would be impossible for other life forms. Chang's voice became serious. The galaxy's peaceful species created the Earth exile because they were afraid of us. They were right to be afraid. Yuna, still held captive on a Vorthak ship, watched her guards receive the news of their fleet's destruction. The Vorthak soldiers went from confident conquerors to terrified prisoners in the span of an hour. What happens to us now? The Vorthak scientist asked her. That depends. Are you going to keep fighting? Fight? Against those monsters? Yuna was confused. Monsters? We intercepted their battle communications. They destroyed our entire fleet, without losing a single ship. They fight like demons. They fight like humans. Exactly. The Vorthak scientist showed her the battle data. The human fleet had moved and fought with coordination that seemed impossible. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship was going to be. They had fought like parts of a single massive organism. How do they coordinate so perfectly? Yuna thought about her research into bacterial colonies, millions of tiny organisms working together as if they shared a single mind. We learned to work together to survive. On Earth, cooperation means life. Competition means death. But there are trillions of them spread across the galaxy. How can they still coordinate? We're still the same species. We still remember the lessons Earth taught us. The Vorthax scientists stared at the tactical displays showing the human victory. No wonder the other species were afraid of you. As reports came in from around the galaxy, it became clear that the attack on Earth had triggered something much larger than a simple rescue mission. Human fleets were moving throughout Vorthax space, systematically destroying every military installation they could find. The Vorthax Empire, which had conquered 17 worlds, was being dismantled in a matter of days by descendants of the primitive species they had tried to conquer. Admiral Kextar, now a prisoner aboard a human ship, finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. Earth had not been a backward planet, ready for conquest. It had been the training ground for the galaxy's most successful military species, and he had just given them a reason to go to war. 6 months after the invasion began, the Vorthax Empire no longer existed. What had once been a civilization spanning 17 star systems was now a collection of refugee camps under human protection. Admiral Kextar sat in a detention cell on a human ship, writing his final report. Not because his superiors had ordered it, but because he needed to understand how everything had gone so wrong. Personal log, final entry, he dictated to his recorder. The invasion of Earth was the greatest military disaster in Vorthax history. We lost not just our fleet, but our entire civilization because we fundamentally misunderstood what humans are. He paused, looking through his cell's window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human fleets were helping Vorthax civilians resettle on new worlds, far from their destroyed empire. We thought Earth was their homeworld and their greatest achievement. It was neither. Earth was their prison, and their prison made them into something we could never defeat. Kextar had spent months talking to human soldiers, trying to understand how his technologically superior forces had been defeated so completely. The answer was both simple and terrifying. They do not fight to win battles. They fight to survive impossible situations. There is a difference. On Earth, life was slowly returning to normal, but normal had changed forever. Yuna stood in her laboratory, which had been rebuilt with technology that seemed like magic. Her new equipment could analyze organisms at the molecular level and simulate evolution across millions of years. Her Vorthax colleague, the scientist who had once held her prisoner, worked at the station next to her. He had requested political asylum rather than return to what remained of his people. "I still don't understand how you survived on this world," he said, studying data about Earth's bacteria. "These organisms would kill most galactic species in minutes." "That's the point," Yuna said. "Earth didn't make us weak. It made us stronger than anyone else in the galaxy." She showed him her latest research. Earth humans had immune systems that could adapt to new diseases in hours instead of generations. Their muscles could function in gravity levels that would crush other species. Their brains could process survival situations faster than most species could think. "Your people weren't primitive," the Vorthax scientist said. "You were highly advanced in ways we never measured. Advanced in the art of not dying, yes. And apparently that's the most important advancement of all." Outside the laboratory, the world was changing. Earth had been reconnected to galactic human civilization, and the exchange of knowledge was transforming both societies. Jiho walked through the rebuilt observatory, marveling at the new equipment. Telescopes that could see across the galaxy in real time. Computers that could calculate the positions of billions of stars simultaneously. But what amazed him most was the human who had come to work with him. Dr. Lee Sang-min had been born on Nine, a world orbiting a different star, but he was clearly Korean in heritage. "My ancestors left Earth 400 years ago," Lee explained as they calibrated the new instruments. "But we kept the old customs, Korean food, Korean names, Korean respect for education. How many Korean colonies are there? Maybe 300. Worlds. We tend to stick together, even in space. Jiho laughed. Some things never change. That's the amazing thing about Earth humans, Lee said. You kept your cultures despite being isolated. Most galactic humans lost their original identities after a few generations. Why? Space colonies are artificial environments. Safe, controlled, predictable. Earth culture was forged by surviving in an environment that wanted to kill you. That makes for stronger traditions. Lee showed Jiho images of Korean settlements on distant worlds, cities that looked like Seoul, but built under alien suns. Farmers growing rice in soil that had never known Earth rain. Children learning Korean songs, on worlds whose names were written in Hangul. We kept the memory of Earth alive, Lee said. And now that we're reconnected, we're learning that the memory was worth keeping. Do-hyun was in his fields, but he was no longer alone. His great-great-granddaughter Min-ji had decided to stay on Earth after her military service ended. She worked, beside him, using farming techniques that combined traditional Korean methods with technology from across the galaxy. The soil here is amazing, she said as they planted new crops. On most worlds, we have to create artificial growing conditions. Here, everything just grows. It's not that simple. We have droughts, floods, insects, plant diseases. Exactly, Minji said. The challenges make the crops stronger, same principle that made humans stronger. She showed him vegetables growing in her part of the field, plants that had been bred on other worlds for perfect conditions. They were dying in Earth's natural environment. My crops can survive in perfect conditions, but they die if anything goes wrong. Your crops can survive almost anything. Do-hyun understood. Earth taught us that surviving the bad times is more important than enjoying the good times. And that lesson applies to everything. Technology, culture, military strategy, even farming. Minji pulled up a plant that had been growing in artificial soil. Its roots were thin and weak. Then she showed him a plant from Earth soil. Its roots were thick, deep, and strong. This is why Earth humans make the best soldiers. Your roots go deep. Around the world, similar conversations were happening as Earth humans met their galactic descendants. Both sides were learning that isolation had preserved something valuable. Earth humans had maintained cultural diversity, environmental adaptation, and survival instincts that their space-borne relatives had lost. The galactic humans had developed technology, knowledge, and perspective that their Earth-bound ancestors could barely imagine. Nari was coordinating communications between Earth and the wider galaxy when she received a message that made her smile. Earth. Defense, this is Colony Ship New Seoul. We're requesting permission to establish a trade route between your world and ours. New Seoul? We're a Korean colony about 40 light-years from Earth. We've been growing Korean food for export to other human worlds, but we'd like to import some original Earth crops. Why? Our food tastes good, but it lacks something. We think that something is the struggle to grow it. This had become a common request. Human colonies throughout the galaxy wanted Earth products not because they were technologically superior, but because they were grown in Earth's harsh conditions. Earth. Rice tasted better than colonial rice because it had to survive Earth weather. Earth animals were healthier because they had to fight Earth diseases. Earth humans were stronger because they had to overcome Earth challenges. What the galaxy's peaceful species had intended as a prison had actually become humanity's greatest advantage. The final irony came when delegations from other alien species began visiting Earth. They wanted to study the world that had produced such formidable opponents. Yuna met with a delegation of scientists from the Deltan Republic, one of the species that had originally supported the human exile. We need to understand how your world created such effective warriors, the lead Deltan scientist explained. Our world didn't create warriors. It created survivors. What's the difference? Warriors fight to win battles. Survivors fight to live. Through impossible situations. When you can survive anything, winning battles becomes easy. The Deltan scientist studied her data about Earth's environment. Most species would have become extinct here within a few generations. Most species didn't have to adapt to Earth. We did. And now you've spread across the galaxy because you learned to adapt to anything. We learned that you can't control. your environment, but you can control your response to it, the Deltan scientist made notes in her report. We were afraid you would become too aggressive if you spread across the galaxy. We became aggressive because we had to survive. Now that we're safe, we can choose to be peaceful. But you're still capable of warfare. We're capable of surviving. Sometimes that means fighting. Sometimes it means helping others survive too. The Deltan looked around at the research facility where humans and former enemies worked side by side. Is this why you're helping the Vorthak refugees instead of destroying them? Destroying enemies is sometimes necessary, but helping them survive is usually better, because survival is what you understand best. Because survival is what we've always understood best. As the years passed, Earth became something unique in the galaxy. It remained a harsh, dangerous world, but now it was also a training ground where beings from across human space came to learn survival skills. Young humans from comfortable colony worlds spent time on Earth to understand their heritage. Former enemies learned to adapt to difficult conditions. Even other alien species sent students to learn how to survive in hostile environments. Earth had gone from being humanity's prison to being the galaxy's school for survival. Do-hyun, now, an old man, sat on his porch watching alien students learn to grow crops in Earth's difficult soil. His great-great-granddaughter Minji sat beside him, her own children playing in fields that had once been battlegrounds. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the Vorthak had never attacked?" she asked. "We'd still be alone here thinking we were weak because our technology was simple, and we'd still be out there thinking we were strong because our technology was advanced." Do-hyun watched a group of former Vorthak soldiers helping human,